seeking to create a sovereign wealth fund is being tackled at the House of Representatives.
Our GAA is always deficit funded. We essentially would be borrowing to fund the GAA, and then you're gonna allow putting money in to the sovereign fund. Isn't that kind of counterintuitive?
It's counterintuitive, pero if there's fiscal space, why not? It's just an allowance, a leeway.
Paduda-duda yung pagraratsyada nitong Maharlika Investment Fund. So unang-unang tanong ba yung mga members ng GSIS at saka yung SSS, napakalaki ng pondo na ito na gagamitin dito sa MIF.
On the financial side, I think it's not the right time. I think the right time to set up a sovereign wealth fund is when we have a rule of law.
From the nation's capital, all sides, all the time, I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Hall. The big story tonight.
House lawmakers continue to push for the creation of a sovereign wealth fund, which supposedly will have the backing of President Bongbong Marcos.
But some economists are pushing back on the measure, saying it's bad timing given the current economic conditions. Marian Enriquez with the report.
The House Committee on Banks and Financial Intermediaries met on Thursday to tackle the bill seeking to create a sovereign wealth fund that will be called Maharlika Investment Fund. The objective of the MIF is to pull funds from government financial institutions and channel them to diversified investments with a goal to grow government savings. The measure has already been approved in principle by the committee but needs fine-tuning by a technical working group. Northern Samar Representative Paul Daza raised concerns about the provision stating that the national government shall contribute to the fund on an annual basis and that subsequent annual contributions shall be provided by the General Appropriations Act.
What is the principle behind allowing funding the sovereign fund from the General Appropriations Act when the very spirit and essence of such a fund is really the excess wealth, surplus of the government?
It's counterintuitive, pero if there's fiscal space, why not? It's just an allowance, a leeway.
Another concern is a provision where the Philippine president will sit as a chairperson of the board of directors, while 2 independent directors will be appointed by the president.
Because if they're all government appointees, I'm worried that in the future, it's not completely independent.
ACT Teachers Party List Representative Franz Castro also questioned how the social security system is able to commit 50 billion pesos for the initial investment. The measure proposes a seed money of 250 billion pesos from the founding government financial institutions or GFIs.
Dito sa Maharlika Wealth Fund, meron pa tayong pera. That is part of our assets under management. At saka po, ang release hindi naman isahan lang. This will be released in tranches.
Castro stresses the need to further study the measure since it is taxpayers' money that will be used for the seed fund. For political economist Calixto Chiquiamco, it's not yet the right time to put up a sovereign wealth fund.
On the financial side, I think it's not the right time. There is a danger of corruption, of politicization of the investment. They say there will be good governance, there will be independent directors. But, you can only do that when you have a rule of law.
The committee is looking at deliberating the measure on the plenary for interpellation and debate by next week. For News 5, Marian Enriquez, we are One News.
The bill filed by House Speaker Martin Romualdez and several other lawmakers wants to create a Philippine sovereign wealth fund. But what exactly is a sovereign wealth fund? Here's what we know. Under House Bill 6398, the proposed fund will draw money from government pension funds and banks to invest in real and financial assets. This will be managed by the Maharlika Investments Corporation. That will be a government-owned and controlled corporation to be created through the measure. A sovereign wealth fund, simply put, is a fund which the nation can use to invest around the world. This can be used in international stock markets, for example, on bonds, real estate, precious metals, and even hedge funds. The point of this would be to help grow public funds. The aim of the proposed fund in the country will be to promote economic development, strengthen the national budget, and boost citizen savings. The bill will draw inspiration from nearly 100 countries with sovereign wealth funds. These include France, Norway, China, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait. Sovereign wealth fund is usually put up by countries with a budgetary surplus, which the Philippines does not have, as well as nations with almost no international debt, which the Philippines has. The initial investment is pegged at 250 billion pesos. Around 125 billion pesos will come from the GSIS, 50 billion from the SSS, another 50 billion from Land Bank, and 25 billion pesos from the Development Bank of the Philippines. Adding to that is the 25 billion pesos to come from the national government's budget. One economist has warned that getting the funding from government pension funds and banks could be problematic.
Usually, economies who are establishing a sovereign fund are those economies who are experiencing surplus, trade surplus, some sort of problematic because as of or recently, we have been experiencing some constraints in funding the benefits of the members of these organizations, given its limited fund as of the moment.
Is it time for the country to create its own sovereign wealth fund? Here to give us their take on the matter, we have with us live via Zoom GSIS President, General Manager, Mr. Jose Arnulfo Wick Veloso. Good evening. Welcome to The Big Story, Mr. Veloso.
Good evening.
Sir, kanina po, sabi ng mga economists, including Mr. Chiquiamco, sabi nga nila, both financially on the fiscal side as well as on the political reality side of the Philippines, we're not quite ready for this. What do you think?
I beg to disagree. In the first place, ang trabaho po namin dito sa mga pension funds po na nabanggit nyo, GSIS at ang SSS ay mag-invest ng pondo. We have 1.5 trillion funds under management po. And we collect 26 billion pesos a month. Our duty is to be able to find viable investments and be able to make it productive, safe for the future generation, specifically for our members. Ngayon po, kami ay nag-i-invest at ang program po na pag-invest sa isang sovereign wealth fund, ngayon magsasama-sama po ang SSS, GSIS, and the two government banks, Land Bank and DBP, so we can train our guns to be able to not only make our money grow, but also help in nation building. And that kind of thinking probably is a far-fetched thinking that may no longer be relevant in what today's market needs. Marami po tayong mga flows. At hindi lang po siguro nila napapansin na iba po mga perang pumapasok dito po sa atin ng mga flow, continuous po, nagiging perpetuity na pumapasok po ang flow. Galing ho halimbawa sa mga dolyar, contribution galing po sa ating mga OFWs. Meron din pong mga dolyar na galing po din sa ating mga BPO sector. At ang layunin po natin ay matuloy na ma-invest ang mga ito sa isang industriya na matatawag natin na talagang Pilipino, a Philippine industry that we can fully support. Katulad ng bakal, wala ho tayo, halos lahat ho ng bakal ay ini-import ho natin. Pagkalimbawa ho sa infrastruktura, ang dam po, ay, pag ito po ay pagmamayari po halimbawa ng isang pondong katulad nito at upang magmamanage dito sa amin, ay tuloy-tuloy ang kita niya ng teknolohiya ho niya na hindi magbabago for the next 100, 500 years. Pababa ang tubig, magproduce ng kuryente. Kukunin mo rin yung iba pang produce ng tubig. Pag mura ang kuryente sa madaling araw, hihigupin mo pataas. Pagkahigop mo pataas, magproduce ka pa ulit-ulit. I would like to make all of these things grow because we don't want this wasted and just be left unattended. All of these funds that we have are needed for us to also help in nation building.
Tapa, Mr. Veloso, assuming the public gets behind this and assuming as well that on the fiscal side, as you said, marami naman tayong flows that can be taken care of. What do you say to the people concerned about the political side and the governance side of this, especially if the GAA is going to be tapped to be funding this? Some lawmakers are saying, isn't that a bit ironic? And at the same time, does that create a moral hazard if we don't put in place a governance structure that is completely transparent and, for that matter, completely independent?
Okay, ano po nyo muna? Una, you have a 15-member board. And the 15-member board are composed, of course, of the founding organizations that I've mentioned. May kanya-kanya ho kaming share. Meron ng mga experts na nariyan. Meron ho tayong advisory body na magsisigurado na tamang direction at ginagawa. Meron ho tayong congressional oversight para masigurado na ang taong bayan ay protektado. At kayo pong taong bayan ay makikita ninyo kung anong ginagawa namin. Kayong makakahusga kung saan at papaano po ginagamit ang pera na ini-invest sa inyo sapagkat may annual reporting po itong aming gagawin para sa sovereign wealth fund ninyo.
Hey, sir, given by definition, sovereign wealth funds are state investment funds from a country's surplus reserves. Do you believe that we have surplus funds? And taking a look at the breakdown...
Correction, yes. That's a very much ill-perceived. Hindi lang ho sa mga excess, hindi lang ho pagka nagkaroon ka ng pasobra, magkakaroon ka ng sovereign wealth fund. That's a very much Google definition that has been, tignan po ninyo ang Indonesia, meron ho silang sovereign wealth fund. Eksakto na ang purpose po nito ay para sa national development, which is similar to what Vietnam is also doing. At yan po, ang definition ay nagsimula dahil nung sinimulan niya ng Kuwait, sila ay nagwo-worry tungkol sa kanilang source po ng langis na baka mawala. At ang kanilang position po sa kanilang financial performance, of course, excess. Kaya ginawa kong ganun ang definition. Pero hindi po ganyan ang purpose ng sovereign wealth fund. I would like to change everyone's perception about how a sovereign wealth fund is. A sovereign wealth fund is the wealth of a nation that is going to be invested po. Itong wealth po nito ay nanggagaling either sa mga pera, mga kontribusyon o mga flows na nagkakaroon po ng annuity na naroon po sa ating bayan nakaparada na dapat po magamit at ma-invest properly. Ay mga pera po ito ini-invest din ngayon. Ang ginagawa po natin ay nag-join forces po tayo. Yung iba-ibang agencies that are mentioned here were all put together para magtulong-tulong at sila ay makagawa ng isang kumpanya that is going to be independent. As a matter of fact, during the technical working discussion earlier, we proposed that the private sector be part of who will compose the board. The proposal was for the Philippine Stock Exchange president to also be there, the president of the Bankers Association with the president of the BAP be there. There was a proposal from the academe to be there. So the area of transparency is going to be fully covered. I just want to make that very clear to our audience po.
Alright, maraming salamat po for your thoughts, GSIS President and General Manager, Mr. Wick Veloso. After the break, security expert Paul Hinlo will join us later on the show to discuss the new measures being undertaken to improve the Ninoy Aquino International Airport. That and more when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News. the big story here on One News. Terminal reassignments took effect over at NAIA in a bid to decongest parts of the airport. Philippine airline flights to and from the USA, Canada, and the Middle East were transferred to NAIA Terminal 1 today. Aside from this, airport officials also decided to remove the use of baggage scanners at the entrance of Terminal 1. This allowed faster inspections at the terminal, and despite the e-security check, the Manila International Airport Authority says the airport remains safe. The MIAA also plans to remove scanners in other terminals soon.
Yung initial security screening kasi, it's a risk-based option eh. So, ang ano talaga natin is yung ma-intensify yung final security screening. Kasi yun naman talaga ang mandatory.
Let's get more insights from an expert on the recent changes at the NAIA. Joining us live via Zoom is Paul Hinlo, a security consultant to various local and international corporations. Sir, good evening. Welcome to The Big Story.
Hi, good evening.
Sir, I don't want to start with NAIA or any of the terminals. I want to start with the Philippines. Does this actually say anything about the rating of the safety of the Philippines in the international community, particularly international bodies looking at the safety of our airports?
Right now, the plan to take out the initial scanners in the entry points of our international airports will help decongest the passengers in line coming into the airport. Proper screening of the tickets and other documents will be done, and as soon as they come in, it gives them a smoother access into the airport. Now, on the endpoint, before they enter the final security check, which was the second layer, I will presume that this is the first and final check upon entering the airport. They will have to step up on the equipment and monitoring of all passengers coming into the airport.
Then no doubt that it will be much more efficient. No doubt a lot of passengers will welcome these changes. But going back to my question, I guess, where is the confidence of our airport authorities, and for that matter, our national government, coming from to loosen these systems, especially given that our airports and our aviation industry has ranked rather problematically in terms of security? Is that confidence coming from the confidence that we will be getting a more favorable rating from international agencies?
Yeah, well, with the ease of travel, entering into the airport, yes, it will help. It lessens the stress. Actually, it's more the stress of each passenger that comes into the airport terminal. They're all in line outside, exposed. It makes things simpler for them to get in. Now, our final security check into the waiting areas will already be heightened, and they have improved on the equipment that they are using now. That will help the screening and scanning of possible threats. Within the airport itself, as soon as you enter, I know that they already have upgraded their cameras and Intel system, Intel personnel within the initial entry of the airport.
So, sir, does this mean there's a way to detect ammunition without going through the scanners and going to the final screening? And how vulnerable does this make us by moving, one bottleneck to the other?
Well, number one, the passengers will be already inside, which lessens the stress. But as soon as the final screening comes in, they have improved and upgraded the system, and they can monitor and check for ammunition and other items of restricted items that are coming into the airport. So the scanners now have been upgraded. Monitoring equipment have been upgraded. This will help smoothen the flow coming in.
Sir, this is before the final screening.
Yes, for the final screening.
So kahit naglalakad po kayo sa airport, nakikita po yung loob ng mga gamit po natin. Tama po ba?
Hindi naglalakad. As soon as pumasok ka ng screening, makukuha lahat ng kailangan makita na contraband na bawal ipasok sa airplane.
But that's at before the flight already, at the terminal.
Yes, before the flight. But some international carriers require a second screening. This will still be there. What the airport management is doing is for people not to be stressed out, falling in line outside in the initial screening. As soon as they enter and check in, their bags will be screened before entering the planes. That will help ease the problem of people falling in line outside and added stress for those waiting.
Okay, maraming salamat po. Security expert Paul Hinlo.
Several groups slammed the government's beep card service provider over alleged scalping. Gio Robles with the story.
Just tap and go. This is the convenience offered by beep cards on trains in Metro Manila.
Kaysa pumila pa po, itatapin lang po sabay pasok na po kaagad sa
But some passengers are now left with no choice but to queue for single journey tickets. Beep card service provider AF Payments said there's a global shortage in chips. Despite this, the company recently announced that it will offer the cards online at 188 pesos each. This is higher than those sold at train stations at 100 pesos with a 70 peso load. One group of digital advocates slammed the AFPI, describing the company as the biggest scalper of beep cards.
Panahon na para i-scrap na yung kontrata, yung agreement with AF Payments Incorporated. Kasi nakita natin over the past years na talagang napakaraming consumers, commuters ng MRT yung nahihirapan dahil sa kakulangan ng mga beep cards.
The Transportation Department is now being urged to seek other payment options.
DOTR has to show a sense of urgency to address this issue. What are the plans for this moving forward?
But the DOTR told 1PH that the online sale of beep cards is out of their control.
Yung pong mga binibenta sa labas po ng istasyon, ito po ay hindi natin kontrolado dahil hindi po ito sakop ng concession agreement na pinasok ng ating gobyerno.
The agency noted, however, that they are open to collaborate with other beep card providers. AFPI, meanwhile, has yet to issue a statement on the matter. For News 5, Gio Robles, we are One News.
After the break, President Marcos is not seeing any need to appoint any health or defense secretaries for now. That and more when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News.
チームラボは2001年から活動している、アートコレクティブです、いろんな専門家が集まって実験をする場所という意味で、チームラボを作りました。
Those experts range from international artists and architects to programmers and mathematicians seeking to navigate the convergence of art, science, tech, and the natural world.
大学院に行きながら始めたんですね。で、大学の専門は、サイエンス、特に物理や数学が、専門でした。今みたいにレンズで世界を切り取ると、画面が境界面となって、自分の身体と切り取った世界に境界ができてしまう。もしくは視点が固定されたり、フォーカスが生まれる。
To explore what it means not to be constrained, Toshiyuki opened the world's first digital art museum in Tokyo, aptly called Team Lab Borderless. And he says advancements and technology has been the key to greater freedom of expression. From experimenting with interactive installations to having visitors step into water, Team Lab has wowed people all over the world in more than 50 cities.
物質とくっつくと、変化そのものを表現することが難しくなったり、物質から解放されることによって、変化することやその時間そのものも表現できるようになったと思っているんです。
One of its most tucked away museums can be found in a forest in southern Japan. Team Lab's digitized nature project explores how digital tech can turn nature into art without harming it.
あの場所はすごい大昔からね、森で、その江戸時代に一部がお庭になったような場所なんだけども、いろんな時代時代の人の営みが重なってきたような場所で、作品を通してね、長い時間が。
You're still watching the big story here on One News. President Bongbong Marcos sees no immediate need to appoint secretaries for the Departments of Health and the Department of National Defense. During the launch of the Kadiwa ng Pasko Caravan in Quezon City, President Marcos said he is satisfied with the performance of DOH officer in charge of Maria Rosario Vergere and Defense OIC Jose Faustino. Marcos Jr. himself concurrently serves as acting agriculture chief. In the event, the president reiterated his campaign promise of bringing down rice prices to 20 pesos per kilo. The price of rice in Kadiwa ng Pasko centers is currently at 25 pesos per kilo.
Palapit na ng palapit tayo sa presyo na aking pinapangarap para sa bigas, especially dahil nakakapag na tayo, dahil pagbili na natin ng 25 pesos, magtutulungan na ang Office of the President at ang ating mga LGU para lahat dahan-dahan kumakalat ang dami nito. Hanggat maaari patuloy ang Kadiwa para naging national program.
For some live news, LRT1's Christmas trains have returned. 2 of its trains are now adorned with Christmas decors, themed music of Christmas. Seats and windows have been repainted with colorful images of musical lines and instruments. Rail line employees surprised passengers by singing a Christmas carol inside one of the trains.
Nag-attendance kanina, absent ka doon nagkantahan ah.
Oo, ako yung nagsasabi na ho, ho, ho. Hindi, pero pag ako kinantahan ng ganyan, lalo akong masistress. Kasi hindi pag-aruling.
May camera pa nakatutok
diba?
sa'yo.
Pag di ka nagbigay. Joke lang, hindi. Magandang ano yan. You know, reminder when you're busy, di ba? Something to disturb you and remind you that it is Christmas season already.
Tumungtong na tayo ng Disyembre. Yan ang big story tonight. For more updates, follow News 5, the Philippine Star, and Business World Online. You may also log on to onenews.ph for more in-depth analysis. Ako po si Robbie Alampay.
The big story is also available via Signal Play app. Make a free account now at signalplay.com and stream One News anytime, anywhere. Ako po si Gretchen Ho. Stay safe, Philippines, and happy holidays. We are now down to our last 24 days till Christmas.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.